The stars were calm. The galaxy was silent. But something dark was coming. It began with whispers, faint messages, picked up by long-range scanners. Entire fleets had gone missing. Patrols stopped reporting. Outer colonies were found burned, with no signs of who had done it. The only clue was static, a deep, pulsing sound in the radio waves. Some called it a warning. Others thought it was just noise. The Galactic Council didn't care. The rich core worlds were safe. They believed no power could threaten them. But far on the edge of known space, one small ship had received the signal clearly. The ship was called Vigilant Hope. It wasn't big. It wasn't new. But it was Terran-made, and that meant something. Its hull was built from heavy black armor, scarred from old wars. It had no escorts, no fleet behind it, just one crew and one mission: to investigate the dark zone. Captain Gray stood at the front of the bridge, arms crossed, watching the stars. "What do you think it is?" asked Lieutenant Mora, her voice calm but curious. Gray didn't blink. "I think it's something bad, and I think it's heading our way." The rest of the crew were quiet. They had all heard the signal. It wasn't just noise. It felt wrong, like it came from something alive, something angry, something old. "We should report it," Mora said. "The Council won't listen to us, but Earth might." Gray shook his head. "By the time Earth reacts, it'll be too late. We find the source, we confirm the threat, and we decide." He didn't say what decide meant, but everyone understood. While most species in the galaxy relied on numbers, the Terrans believed in preparation. Humans came from a death world. They were raised under pressure. Gravity, storms, hunger, pain, these were part of their history. Fear didn't guide them. Survival did. The crew of the Vigilant Hope had survived. Worst. Chief Tech Len was busy analyzing the signal. "It's repeating," he said. "Same burst every 17 minutes. Low frequency. It's not language, but there's structure." "Could it be a trap?" Mora asked. "Everything's a trap," Len muttered. Gray smiled faintly. "Let them trap us. Let's be the first thing their trap fails on." The ship moved slowly toward the edge of the dark zone, an area where no light escaped, where scanners failed, where even time felt slower. Alien ships sent to explore this region had vanished without a trace. Even the bravest bounty hunters avoided it. The Council had marked it as unstable space and left it alone. But the Vigilant Hope didn't turn back. Inside the ship's hangar bay, weapons were checked. Armor suits were charged. AI systems were sensed. No one spoke much. They didn't need to. Every member of the crew had chosen this mission. They knew what was out there could be worse than any war they had fought before. In the med bay, the doctor looked over her supplies. "Whatever this is," she said softly, "it won't care if we're ready." Her assistant asked, "Then why are we still going?" She smiled grimly. "Because we're human." As the ship crossed the border into the dead zone, all outside, signals vanished. Stars disappeared from the window. It was as if the Vigilant Hope had entered a cave carved into the galaxy itself. Suddenly, the signal grew louder, not just on the comms, but inside the crew's minds. Deep, vibrating pulses, like drums, like a heartbeat. The ship shook lightly. Lights flickered. "Captain," Len called out, "I'm detecting something ahead. No shape, no heat, but ... movement." Gray narrowed his eyes. "Bring us closer, shields up." The crew TENSED through the darkness. A shape began to form. A ship. No, a creature, metal and bone, glowing with a sick green hue. No known design, no engine, just floating and watching. Then the signal stopped. Complete silence. Gray stood firm. "They're watching us," Mora whispered. Gray replied, "Good. Let them see what happens when you stare at a Terran ship. And just like that, the Vigilant Hope armed its weapons. Asterisk, the alien thing hovered in the void, half alive, half machine. It had no name, no known origin. But the crew of the Vigilant Hope stared at it without fear. Inside the bridge, red lights pulsed, weapons were hot, shields were up. Captain Gray stood motionless. Still no movement, Len reported. It's just ... Watching. Mora tapped her screen. Energy levels rising slowly. Not aimed at us, yet. Yet, Gray echoed, then gave a small nod. Prepare for close scan. Outside, the stars seemed farther away. The darkness clung to the hull like a shadow with weight. But inside the ship, the mood was calm. No panic. No prayers. Just quiet readiness. In the engine room. Engineer Rigg leaned back in his chair, chewing on a protein stick. This thing really gonna fight us? He asked, flipping switches one-handed. Hope it tries. His assistant, barely, out of training, blinked. You single quotes read ... not scared? Rigg chuckled. Kid, I've seen a sun go supernova. I've raced against pirate fleets with half an engine. I once escaped a black hole in a mining drone. But this is something unknown. Exactly. Rigg said with a grin. Unknowns are the best stories. In the weapons bay, 2 crew members were armoring up. Big boots, thick gloves, and reinforced chest plates. Not shiny. Not polished. Just tough. One of them, an old woman with gray streaked hair named Kel, slapped her gun against the table. They say this ship eats worlds, she muttered. But I say let it try chewing on humans, her partner smirked. We'll stick. In its throat. Back on the bridge, the scan completed. Len looked confused. It's not a ship in the normal sense. It's more like a ... living satellite. Feeding on fear. It absorbs energy from terrified minds. Mora frowned. That explains why other fleets disappeared. Their fear made them weak. Gray's voice was low and cold. Good. That means we're the wrong meal. He stood up straighter. Send? The message. Mora blinked. What message? Gray walked toward the front window. 1 sentence, he said. No matter how big you are, no matter how many ships you've swallowed, we are not afraid. The signal was sent. For a moment, the alien construct did nothing. Then its lights shifted. The green turned to red. Thin arms unfolded from its sides, each tipped with black claws that shimmered like broken glass. It's charging something, Len warned. Let it, Gray replied calmly. Everyone hold. The creature roared not with sound, but with thought. A deep, psychic push that slammed into the Vigilant Hope's hull. Most species would have panicked. Most crews would have screamed. But the humans ... they daft. Kel roared from weapons. Bay, that all you got? My grandmother's stew hit harder. In the engine room, Rigg slammed a wrench into a panel. Keep shouting, you star-sucking freak. It's music to me. Even Mora grinned. We're really doing this, aren't we? Gray's voice was calm, like a winter storm. Target its core. Fire when ready. The first shot lit the dark zone. A beam of plasma slammed into the alien's shell. It hissed, recoiled, but didn't fall. Instead, it grew larger, drawing. In more darkness. The creature tried again, another pulse, stronger, sharper. The crew took the hit, but didn't falter. Human hearts were still beating steady. The second shot came faster, then a third. The Vigilant Hope circled, firing with precision, using old Terran tactics. Hit, vanish, reappear. Sting like insects. Earn like fire. The alien shrieked again, but not from strength, from confusion. This wasn't what it expected. This was not how humans were supposed to act. And that's when Gray whispered what would later become legend across stars. You picked the wrong species. The final shot came from below, a focused railgun blast through the creature's underbelly. It tore through metal and flesh. Something inside cracked, leaked blue liquid, and hissed into the void. The alien stopped moving. It didn't explode. It didn't vanish. It just went still. Silence returned. Len stared at the readings. It's not dead, but it's not alive either. Gray nodded. We didn't kill it. We broke its mind. Mora exhaled slowly. What do we do now? Gray looked out at the stars that had just begun to return beyond the dark. We find who built it. He turned to the crew. And then we remind them why the galaxy trembles, not because of monsters like this, but because of humans like us. The creature drifted, broken and silent. The vigilant hope floated nearby, weapons still armed, engines quiet. No one spoke for a long moment. The crew waited, watched, scanned. Then the silence shattered. A whisper barely audible cut through. Their systems, not from the beast, but from beyond it. A deep, distant voice, calm, cold, and very, very aware. Your resistance is noted. Now we see you. Len froze. That didn't come from the creature. It came from something else, Mora whispered. Another source. Far away, but watching us. Gray's jaw tightened. Mark the coordinates. Let's see who's looking back. The signal had carried a code complex, ancient, hidden behind layers of encryption. But the ship's AI unraveled it in seconds. It wasn't just a message, it was an invitation. Or maybe a challenge. The coordinates pointed to an uncharted system, completely dark, off every map, surrounded by gravity rips and magnetic storms. No known ships had ever entered it and come back. Gray stood at the center of the bridge. That's where the signal came from. That's where we're going. Riggs' voice crackled through comms. Great. We break the monster, and now we're walking straight into its home. Cal laughed. Wouldn't be the first time. Len looked uncertain. Captain, if we jump there, we're alone. Earth can't help us. No reinforcements, no escape routes. Gray gave a simple answer. Then we'll make one. The ship jumped. Not through standard warp. No beacon guided them. The vigilant hope bent through space like a knife, through thick cloth cutting into a region that felt cold, wrong, and empty of time. When they arrived, they saw it. A massive construct floated in the void. It wasn't a station. It wasn't a ship. It was something else. Like a city carved from bone and iron, wrapped in gravity fields, pulsing with red veins. It looked old, too old to have been built by anything alive now. Thousands of similar creatures to the one they had defeated surrounded it, dormant and silent, waiting. They're all asleep, Mora whispered, or they're waiting for orders. Len added grimly. The crew stared. Then a single light blinked on dead center of the alien structure. One hangar, one path, one open door. Guess that's the invitation, Cal said. Gray stood. Ear up, he ordered. We're going in. Inside the hangar, the air was cold. Not freezing, but unnaturally still. Like even the molecules were afraid to move. The landing team stepped out. Gray, Mora, Cal, and 2 more Marines. They wore light armor, heads scanning in every direction. There was no sound, no movement, just metallic walls covered in symbols. No one could understand. Suddenly, a hologram appeared. Not a threat, not a weapon. A figure. It looked. Human. Tall, pale, dressed in long robes, eyes glowing faint blue. But it was not a person. It was too smooth, too perfect, too old. The voice returned. You are early. Gray raised his weapon. And you're playing games. We expected fear. We planned for surrender. We designed creatures to hunt and break all lesser minds. But you resisted. You hurt the hive. You should not exist. Mora stepped forward. Who are you? We are the architects. The word echoed in their minds. Kel frowned. Architects of what? Of order, of silence, of control. We ended chaos by ending fear. But you're kind. You bring chaos through courage. Gray stared coldly. You built monsters to silence the galaxy. We're here to turn the volume up. Suddenly, alarms lit the walls. The sleeping creatures. Outside were waking up eyes glowing, wings unfolding, weapons forming. The entire station began to move like it had a heartbeat. The voice returned, sharp and final. Leave now, human. This is your last warning. Gray stepped closer to the hologram. No, he said. This is your first contact with us. He dropped a small cube. A Terran virus. Designed to break systems without leaving a trace dot, it activated instantly. Across the alien station, lights shattered. Code scrambled. Power blinked out. Gray turned to his team. Time to leave a calling. Card. The team ran. Explosions echoed behind them as the virus spread. Systems failed. Normith monsters froze. Red lights cracked to black. The ship's AI activated the emergency recall. Seconds later, the Vigilant Hope warped out just as the entire construct shuddered and darkened. Back in safe space, the crew exhaled. They hadn't won. Not yet, but the galaxy had changed forever. And the enemy knew one truth now. Humanity would not kneel. Even to gods, the galaxy was no longer silent. From the farthest mining moons to the heart of old empires, every come station echoed with the same broken signal. Static, pulsing red light, and then silence. But behind the silence was fear. Something had happened in the dark. Something big. Ships that had gone to investigate had not returned. Rumors spread like fire of a Terran vessel, of an ancient enemy, of a station that no longer existed. Vigilant Hope had vanished from all maps. No one knew where it had gone. No one knew if it still lived, but the ones who had watched, the ones hiding in deep systems and hollowed-out asteroids, they whispered the truth. They whispered about the ship that made the architects bleed, on a council world, inside a marble. Fortress built for comfort, the news reached the elders. High Chancellor Vor stood at the center of a chamber filled with delegates, all speaking over one another in panic. The hive ship in Sector 9 has stopped transmitting. Reports of another fallen colony burned from the inside. Who gave the humans permission to act? They didn't ask, one voice replied bitterly. They all turned toward the speaker, a short, green-skinned diplomat from the outer zones. The Terran vessel moved on its own, without a fleet, without permission, and it destroyed the unknown. Signal source, alone. The room fell quiet. Impossible. A noble spat. One human ship can't stand against what we saw in the scans. The green-skinned diplomat simply replied, "Then your eyes lied." Far from the chambers, on a border moon where old ships gathered dust, bounty hunter Ralak cleaned his rifle. He had fought humans before during the Terran skirmishes. He still carried a scar on his chest from a plasma shot. But this was different. He loaded a new round, watching a shaky recording someone had paid a fortune to smuggle out. It showed the Vigilant Hope moving through a black storm, surrounded by fire and not running. What kind of ship fights alone? He muttered. His AI assistant replied, "Not ship, species." Greylock stared at the screen. He didn't say it, but deep down he knew the galaxy was no longer safe. Back aboard the Vigilant Hope, repairs were underway. The warp core hummed softly. Burned plating on the hull was replaced. Deep inside, the crew moved like a machine, quiet, focused. Fast. No celebration. Just purpose. Mora walked beside Captain Gray in the hallway near the weapons deck. "They're talking about us," she said, all across space. They say we picked a fight with ghosts. We did, Gray replied calmly. And we survived. Barely. That's all we need. She stopped walking. Why aren't we telling Earth? The Council? Anyone? Gray turned, his eyes cold and sharp. Because they won't believe us. Not until the next attack comes. Not until they see monsters crawling out of the stars. He stepped forward again. We're not warning them. We're preparing. Kel was in the training room, running drills with 2 new crew members. She barked orders while swinging a heavy blade, her movements sharp and confident. One of the rookies asked, "Do you really think they'll come again?" Kel laughed. They never left. You think this is over? This was just the first round. Now they know who we are. Next time, they'll bring more. She paused, then grinned. But so will we. In the observation deck, Len stared out at the stars. The galaxy looked peaceful again. But he knew it was a lie dot. He tapped into the communication archives, checking the latest reports from outposts near the edge. He saw pattern-strange ship. Sightings. Colonies going quiet. Old mining bots receiving corrupted updates. All of it meant one thing. The architects weren't done. They were watching. They were learning. And they were coming. At the center of the dark zone. Somewhere beyond known space, the broken alien station began to pulse again. Slowly, quietly. Inside, metal reformed. Creatures rebuilt. But now, they moved differently. Less automatic. More aware. The virus from the Terran ship hadn't just damaged their systems. It had changed them. Some of the beasts now twitched at loud sounds. Others avoided human-shaped holograms. One of the architects stood at a ruined console, scanning fragments of Terran language. They do not act like others, it said. They do not break. They become stronger. Another replied, then we must evolve. The old methods won't work. The screen flickered to a still image, the silhouette of the Vigilant Hope flying. Through fire. Begin the new design, the architect ordered. One that does not consume, but hunts. Back on the Vigilant Hope, Gray stood in front of the crew in the ship's main bay. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't give a long speech. He just said one thing. They know we're here. But now, they know we won't run. Every crew member stood a little taller. No medals, no cheering. Just steel in their eyes. Because the next fight was coming. And this time, the galaxy would be watching. Asterisk. The stars thinned as the Vigilant Hope flew deeper into the void. Here, space felt older. There were no signals, no trade routes, no colonies. Just silence, cold and deep. The kind of silence that even AI systems hesitated to scan. Captain. Gray stood on the bridge, eyes fixed on the expanding black ahead. They had followed a new trail data left behind in the broken code of the architect's station. It pointed to something deeper. A core. Not just where the monsters were made, but where they were born. Gray gave a quiet command. Take us in. Stealth systems on. The ship responded like a ghost. Lights dimmed. Engines shifted to silent drift. Outside, nothing but void, and the growing presence of something fast below the bridge. In the armory, Kel checked weapons for the 10th time. This isn't a fight we walk into with standard gear. She muttered. She opened a crate marked Earth Protocol, Level 6. Inside were weapons that hadn't been used in years. Silent grenades, ion blades, neural shockers, gravity-bending rounds. Her second-in-command looked nervous. We're really going into their nest? Kel nodded. Yeah, and we're not knocking. We're kicking the door down. In the medbay, Mora sat alone, watching a recording on her wrist device. It was old footage before the mission. A group of kids playing under Terran sun. One of them looked like her younger brother. She closed the device and stood. We're not just here to survive, she whispered to herself. We're here so they never have to know these things exist. Then, the ship stopped, dead still. Before them stood the hive world, not a planet, not a moon, but a living structure, wrapped in black metal and bone, spinning slowly in the void. It looked like something had tried to build a world, and then changed its mind. Halfway, it pulsed, breathed, waited, Gray stared. That's it. Len's voice came through, tense. We can't scan through the surface. It's blocking everything, even light. But I think it knows we're here. Gray nodded. Good. He turned to Mora. Prep the infiltration team. The landing craft moved silently, slipping through. The hive's defenses like smoke. No resistance. No weapons fired. Almost like the enemy was inviting them in. Inside the hive, the walls were alive, not moving, but twitching like they wanted to move. Flesh and metal mixed together, forming. Halls that bent when touched. Strange glowing eyes blinked on walls, tracking them as they passed. Kel walked point, rifle raised. This place was made for fear, she growled. Built like a trap. Gray replied, then let's be the thing they trap wrong. Deeper in. They found rooms filled with tanks. Each tank held a half-formed creature some, like the one they fought before. Others, worse. Taller, sharper, more aware. One tank cracked as they passed. Not all the way. Just a small web-like crack in the corner. Gray stopped. They're rushing now, he said. We spooked them. Now they're trying to make something stronger fast. Len's voice crackled through comms. Captain, we're picking up a signal from deeper in. Buried under the hive. Source? Organic supercore. Huge. Pulsing in rhythm. Could be the control center. Gray turned to his team. We go in. The final chamber was like nothing they had seen. A massive brain alive and glowing rested. In the center, wires ran from it in all directions. It throbbed with life. Monitors around it showed views of the galaxy. Ships, fleets, council chambers. Earth cities. They were watching everything. Mora whispered. They've been listening to us for decades. Longer, Gray said. They never attacked. They waited, learned, copied us. He placed a device on the ground Terran grade. Collapse charges. K. EL smirked. Time to give them amnesia. But as they turned to leave, the chamber changed. The walls closed. Lights pulsed red. Then it spoke not through speakers, but through their minds. You cannot erase us. We are the silence between every thought. We are what waits after light, and you are still alone. Gray didn't blink. Double quotes. No, you're just early. Early? He nodded. Because we haven't called for backup yet. He tapped his wrist. A signal burst from his suit-silent, short-range, coded only for one listener. Outside the hive, orbiting in deep stealth, the Vigilant Hope received it. And triggered Plan Black Star. The hive trembled. Outside, from warp space, 2 more Terran. Ships dropped in. Bigger, heavier, silent as death. The Vigilant Hope wasn't alone anymore. Inside, Gray smiled. You learned fear, he said softly. But you didn't learn human stubbornness. As the chamber shook and alarms blared, the crew raced out, slipping through shadows, while the hive began to collapse from inside. One final explosion sent a shockwave that echoed across deep space. Hive was not gone. But now it knew something. Terrifying. Humans didn't wait for war to come. They brought it. Asterisk. The hive was in chaos. The explosion inside its core chamber triggered shockwaves through the living walls. Flesh metal structures pulsed wildly. Red lights flickered. The once silent corridors now echoed with screams metallic, unnatural and afraid. Outside, 3 Terran ships surrounded the hive like wolves around a wounded beast. The Vigilant Hope, the Iron Dagger, and the newly arrived Ghost Hammer, all black-holed, running cold, their cannons glowing softly. They didn't send warnings, no speeches. No surrender calls, just silence. The kind that comes before a storm, inside the hive. Alarms howled, systems failed. Neural links overloaded. Architects screamed orders, but their creatures didn't respond. They weren't designed for this, not for pain, not for fear, and definitely not for humans. Who didn't run? On the bridge of the Vigilant Hope, Captain Gray stared at the spinning hive on the screen. Status? He asked, structural integrity dropping. Core stability critical, Len replied. We hit something deep. It's not dead yet, but it's bleeding. Good, Gray said. Mora stepped beside him. Ready to finish this? He looked at her. Not yet? Why? Gray leaned forward. Because we're not just ending a monster. We're sending a message. Below deck, Kel and the returning team stood in the ship's central bay. Their armor was scratched, boots burned, faces smudged with ash and blood. But their eyes were. Calm. War wasn't new to them. Just. Louder this time. The med team checked vitals. One Marine had a cracked rib. Another had light-brained feedback from the hive's psychic pulses. But nobody asked to rest. They stood, waiting for Gray's next call. Far away, across the galaxy, news. Spread fast. The Ghost Hammer's sudden warp signature had been detected by 5 different alien sensors. Military outposts scrambled. Civilian channels buzzed. The Council had no answers. How many more human warships are there? What is Earth planning? Why is the hive going dark? Fear shifted sides. The terror that once controlled the galaxy was now circling back to its creators. Back at the hive, a new voice echoed. You cannot kill what is eternal. It was the architects again. But this time, their voice shook. Gray replied calmly, Eternity's just a longer fight. You will fall. You cannot outlast us. Gray looked to Mora, then to Len. Patch me into wideband. Len hesitated. Sir, you want to broadcast? Gray nodded. Yes, it's time they all hear us. Across the galaxy, Terran relay satellites lit up. Every major world, from icy trade hubs to council capitals, received a sudden signal. A human. Voice. Clear. Cold. Calm. This is Captain Gray of the Terran vessel Vigilant Hope. You sent monsters to our edge. You silenced fleets. You fed on fear. We're here to tell you, it's over. You wanted silence. But now, you'll hear the roar of the human heart. The signal cut. And then, the Terran fleet opened fire. Plasma rounds, railguns, laser. LANCES. Each ship moved like a predator. Fast, sharp, deadly. The Iron Dagger pierced the hive's lower spine with one powerful burst. The Ghost Hammer fired a silent payload, one designed to destabilize. Energy fields and melt composite bone metal. Hive shuddered, screamed. Not from physical pain, from confusion that it had never been cornered, never been hunted, never been outwilled. Inside the hive, deep in one forgotten chamber, a lone architect staggered. Its glowing eyes flickered. It had studied humans for centuries, it knew their wars, their brutality, their cleverness. But it had missed something not written in data, not in code, not in strategies. Something that now burned through every Terran ship, every scream of their war engines, every soldier that stood without fear, heart. On the Vigilant Hope, the crew watched as the hive finally began to collapse in on itself. Fires burst across its surface. Chambers folded inward. The once great terror turned to ash in the dark. Kel watched from the viewing deck, her hand pressed against the glass. No medals for this, she muttered. Good, said Rig beside her. We're not doing it for medals. Kel smiled. We're doing it so no kid ever dreams of that thing again. As the hive finally broke apart, the Terran ships turned. No victory chance. No celebration. They just turned and vanished into the stars. But across the galaxy, the message was clear. Earth wasn't just another world. Terrans weren't just another species. They were the ones who stared fear in the face and roared, asterisk. The hive was gone. What remained was a slow-burning cloud of wreckage drifting in silent space-twisted bone metal, shattered towers, and black dust glowing faint red. Pieces floated like broken memories. Creatures that once hunted entire fleets now drifted lifeless, their eyes dim, their forms frozen in defeat. But far away, in systems that hadn't even heard of the vigilant hope, stories had already begun to spread. Some said a single human ship had destroyed an ancient god. Others said it wasn't a ship, but a shadow that wore a human face. None of the stories agreed on the details, but they all shared one truth: the galaxy trembled. And one human vessel refused to back down. Captain Gray stood alone on the observation deck. Below him, the glowing remains of the hive drifted into forever. No emotion touched his face. Only silence. Mora joined him. No signal, she said. No. Survivors. Nothing left to trace. He nodded. And Earth? He asked. They heard everything. The message was received. All of it. Gray gave the faintest nod. Then it was worth it. Mora looked out at the stars. Do you think they'll believe it? No, he said softly. But they'll remember it. Back on Earth, the Terran assembly sat in silence. The broadcast from Gray's voice had played in every room, every dome, every council seat. Children watched it in schools. Workers froze in factories. Generals listened with steady breath. It wasn't a cry for help. It wasn't a request for backup. It was something far older. A declaration. Earth's leader stood slowly. This wasn't a war, she said to the gathered nations. It was a warning, one that the galaxy will never forget. Around her, officers gave a new order, not to build a fleet, not to prepare defenses, but to begin Terran expansion protocol. The time for hiding behind peace had ended. The stars had called. And now, Earth would answer. On a neutral colony world, a young alien child sat at a dusty bar counter. The barkeep, an old war vet with half a cybernetic skull, served quiet drinks and louder stories. The child asked, "Is it true? Did they really do it?" The old alien looked up. Who? The humans, the ship, the hive, all of it. The barkeep wiped his hands and leaned forward. You ever been near a storm? He asked. The child nodded. You know how it feels when the air changes before the wind hits? Like something's about to break loose? Yes, that's what it felt like. The moment that ship fired. I wasn't even in that system, but I felt it. So did a million others. That's how loud a Terran heartbeat is. The child looked up with wide eyes. Are they monsters? The old soldier smiled. No, monsters don't fight for others. They fight to eat, but humans. Humans fight so no one else has to. Back aboard the Vigilant Hope, repairs were quiet, calm. Every crew member moved like part of a single steady machine. Tired but proud, Kel finished checking armor plates and leaned against the wall. We really did it, she said to herself. Rig passed by, tossing her a coolant bottle. You say that like it's over. She caught it. Isn't it? He raised an eyebrow. One hive down. How many more sleeping in dark corners? Kel looked toward the stars. Then we wake them up, she said with a smirk. Gray stood once. Again on the bridge. Len brought him a datapad. New coordinates, Len said, based on what we pulled from the hive core before it burned. Gray scanned the screen. Systems, names, shadows. Send a copy to command, he ordered. Then delete it from our logs. Mora looked over. Why? Gray looked up at her, voice low. Because legends don't need maps. They need mystery. Later, in the sleeping quarters, Mora recorded a message for Earth. Simple, direct. Made contact. They weren't gods. They weren't unstoppable. They were just old and unchallenged. Not anymore. We didn't bring peace today, but we bought the galaxy time. Use it well. 1 week later, the vigilant hope vanished, not no trace, not no signal. Only a whisper in the void. Some say it returned to Earth. Others say it patrols the stars still silent. Watching, waiting. But in every sector where fear once ruled, a new symbol began to appear. A dark star, surrounded by fire. With one name etched below it in every. Tongue colon hope. And so the legend was born, not from victory, not from power, but from refusal. Refusal to kneel, refusal to flee, refusal to die quietly. Because sometimes all it takes is one ship. To remind the galaxy what it means to be human. Asterisk.